Well, good afternoon, everybody. Tom Glucci here with the Mortgage Collaborative, welcoming you into part one of our multi-part TMC credit verification cost savings series. Just going to give a quick moment here to allow our attendees to continue to filter in on the line before we jump in. But as always, with any TMC Connect session, highly encourage your interactivity throughout today's discussion. So please feel free, any questions, comments, insights that you want to drop for the betterment of our audience, you can feel free to do that either through the chat function or the Q&A icon should be at the bottom of your Zoom menu today. So if you guys hang out real quick, we'll get started momentarily. Did Michael, Jeff, did you guys coordinate on the white polos?
I didn't get the memo, guys.
Yeah.
This was supposed to be a united front.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Well, my choices were either this one or a purple one. So
I could see rock
try.
purple.
Good call.
Yeah. Barney comes to mind.
Well, on that fun note, formally welcome everybody into today's latest TMC Connect discussion. And it is the first part of our TMC credit verification cost savings series. And as part of part one today, we wanted to dive into some best practices to help minimize controllable credit verification expenses. And no, this has been a hot button issue of late within our industry. And so just coming out of our San Diego conference, our three credit verification partners got together and decided, great opportunity for the benefit of the collaborative membership to put competition aside. And I can't remember a time where I've had all my partners within an operating vertical want to come together to drop knowledge that they've been deploying with their clients, really for the benefit of our lender members at TMC. So you guys are in for a treat today for some best practices and cost saving strategies when it comes to your credit and verification strategy. So kicking off today, I want to introduce our three panelists for this discussion. First off, as I'm looking from my Zoom screen, probably different for you guys, but top left for me is Chief Operating Officer with Partners Credit, Tracy King. So welcome in, Tracy.
Thank you.
And then going bottom left for me in the white polo, we've got Michael Crockett, Chief Data Officer with Zactus. Hey, Michael.
Hey, good afternoon.
And twinning on the attire with Michael today, Senior Account Executive with Certified Credit, Jeff Wolteman. We do it, Jeff?
Good, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate you all and your willingness to participate today. And just to kind of frame up the discussion, I think really in the fall of 22, we saw credit verification providers dealt with unprecedented pricing tier increases, very largely in the headlines coming down from FICO, but then you couple that with annual work number and credit bureau pricing increases. And then unfortunately, as things work out largely within this industry, having to then pass that cost increase down to their mortgage lending clients and then in turn the end borrower. So with the average cost to produce, according to MBA stats, exceeding $12,000 per loan in Q4 of 22, especially in a down market, lenders are really forced to make challenging decisions on how do you offset these increases. And what many people may not understand is that in addition to these credit bureau increases, you've got secondary use fee on reissues that have significantly increased as well. And then additionally, you have Fannie and Freddie soliciting public input on the implementation process of replacing the classic FICO scoring model with the new FICO 10 Advantage Score 4.0 models, and transitioning away from a traditional tri-merge to a bi-merge of credit scoring for mortgage applications. So, we're all kind of patiently waiting to see how that process plays out, with FHFA currently estimating a Q1 2024 implementation for that bi-merge reporting model. But in consulting with our panelists in the lead up to today's discussion, kind of the consensus, like I mentioned, there's really no telling how that information or data sharing is going to work, or what future price increases may look like upon industry-wide adoption. So that's why we're here today, to provide you some best practices and unique approaches, maybe commonly overlooked, that can greatly reduce your credit verification costs. So before we kind of dive into the meat of the discussion today, I do want to drop a plug. It's in the chat right now too. So we're gonna have part 2 of this series coming up in 2 weeks from today. Keep it consistent, Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern on May the 9th, where we dig into part 2, which is thinking outside the box to offset credit and verification expenses. So if you enjoy the content from today, highly encourage you to register and come join us in 2 weeks from now for some additional insights. So on that note,
Tom, one thing that you
Yes.
mentioned, I think you said the buy merge is probably going to be Q1 2024. I'd be really surprised by that.
Yes.
So just so we don't start getting questions of like, when's it coming? When's it coming? You might want to push that back a year. And I think that might be more realistic.
see, dropping knowledge already. I appreciate that, Tracy. And I know we'll all keep a watchful eye to see the tea leaves that FHFA drops in regards to a lot of this emerging initiative. So let's jump right into kind of work number, common pain point we hear from our lender members at the collaborative. And Tracy, I want to start with you, since the work number can represent some costly monthly expenses for lenders. But from your experience and from the partner's credit side, what are some easily implemented tips or best practices that you might advise lenders that could help reduce their work number bill?
Yeah, and I think, what my colleagues here are going to talk about as well is, these prices have gone up and there's little that you can do when you have something that you have to use. Unfortunately, there's not a ton of wiggle room if a customer or employer exclusively uses the work number. So you're left to use that. What we're really going to talk about in all our different kind of sectors here is changing your process a little bit and looking at how you are utilizing these services. So as many of you know, the work number kind of changed their policy on how they're retrieving information. So it's no longer previous and current, they're going to give you all the information within the last 36 months. The biggest thing that we've seen, and we've all collectively talked about it, is, a lot of times people are coming to us saying, well, I can just go to the work number directly. The biggest thing about that is, sure, we understand you could go to the work number directly. In some cases, you might be able to get it $1 or so cheaper if you go directly to the work number, but ultimately it's going to cost you a lot more. And the reasoning is because you're allowing your employees to kind of go in and select a free-for-all. So where they've changed their policy of how they're looking at information, it also allows your employees to go in and be open to several different products that frankly you do not need. A lot of times your underwriters are just going to need the last 2 years of employment. A lot of times people are going in just selecting, give me everything. And they're not being as strategic and specific as you would necessarily be, because for them, they're just trying to go in and get it done quickly. By using a third-party provider like ourselves, we're able to go in and kind of limit what you can get from them. Specific products, how much you want to go back, and we have a set pricing for that. Whereas if they're going in directly to the work number, they have access to multiple things at different price points. So it allows you to control that. And the next piece is, which we've talked about a lot, and all my friends in white here also offer, is all of us offer something called a cascade. And what's really important about this is that the work numbers pricing is basically set for utilizing their services. And, even if you say, okay, we're going to do manual VOEs in-house, meaning if that borrower, their employer says we go directly to the work number, or it's someone that you can call directly. A lot of your employees continue to use the work number for everything rather than taking it in-house. They're already in the system. Why don't they just have the work number, order the manual? And even if you say they don't do this, I'm telling you, take a look at your invoices. They do, because we've found that a lot of times when we're working with customers and prospects. So the biggest thing is that they have a flat pricing, which is pretty expensive. with all of us, we can do something with the cascade. So we can look at other third parties, and also once it kind of filters down from hitting the work number, it'll automatically cascade to a product in which if we can do the manuals for you, it's a significantly different price point. So it's really taking control of how your processors are handling these, looking at your invoices. And even if you think you have controls and have told them what they should and should not do, there's wiggle room. And right now, all of us need to have pretty strict priorities of how we're managing things and limitations onto what people have access to. So this is a really simple, easy way.
Great points, Tracy. And an additional question I'd have just as it relates to process flow that you mentioned. We hear a lot, we talked about lead up to this discussion, that how and when you order verifications to the work number can be a huge impact on the pricing. And maybe you could take a minute just to kind of explain why that is and the potential cost benefits behind doing that order at the ideal time in the loan process flow.
Right. So, I mean, you all have a different process, that everyone is unique in how they do things. Sometimes if different software that you're using is offering up integrations earlier on in the process, it doesn't necessarily mean that is the right flow for you. So if you're ordering products early, such as a VOE, before you get to a significant milestone in your loan process, I really would reevaluate that, because just because you might be working within a system that offers it up front when you're pulling credit, that's an additional, dependent on what information is returned, anywhere from $50 to $100 more on top of your already expensive credit pull. So I would really take a look at, why are you pulling things at certain places? What is it preventing? What is it giving you access to? And how can you potentially get that in another way where it doesn't disrupt your interactions with the borrowers?
And a little bit of an off-the-cuff question here too, but the timing of that verification when it's ordered, can that also be an impact on, say, being able to avoid a potential re-verification of information before the loan closing?
No, that's typically, there's some flexibility into what I know. Different lenders have different timeframes in which they have to do a re-verify, but typically it's within a few days of closing that you have to do that re-verify. And typically the re-verify is a lot less than what you're getting on the standard VOE. You're not, re-verifying their income. You're not getting that additional information. It's just, hey, do they still work there? So that will always probably be a constant, but the initial is really kind of, what you should be looking at in steps of, you can kind of plug away and say, what's your income when you're trying to create a file for somebody, and then you do the follow-ups afterwards.
Gotcha. Appreciate that. And just a quick reminder to anybody on the line here, should you have any questions, comments, insights for the group today, please feel free to drop those in the chat or the Q&A function. Michael, from your perspective, is there any additional maybe missteps out there or best practices in regards to the work number that you advise your clients on with Zactus that can help them reduce some potential overhead monthly costs?
Yeah, Tom, thanks. I will say, it's Tracy really hit the points. And number one is, where do you order let's take the VOEs, right? So the work number, at what point are you ordering that in your process? That becomes really the dictator as to what you're going to be doing next. One component that we didn't mention earlier is day one certainty, right? Because of day one certainty, it does a little bit prompt your hand as to what you want to do, because obviously you need to know what documentation you're going to need or not need based on if you achieve the day one certainty or not. With that being said, I still go back to where you want to initially, or I say in years past, you'd place it up front. And you were trying to get all your information up front. The work number, what we're speaking of that gives all of the information you need, right? Up front, you can get it, but that also becomes that inefficiencies from a cost perspective that Tracy mentioned. I think when we speak from the Zactus perspective, but certainly I know we speak from this group perspective, we're trying to give the best practices to help our lenders, achieve that, getting that loan through. And in doing so, it's efficiency. How can I save money? And, which is the cheaper process. And then number two is, how can I save money on the efficiency on time? How do I not duplicate my work? How do I not do unnecessary work at the beginning? So again, it all goes back to the timing of when you're wanting to order these products.
I appreciate it, Michael. And honestly, it's a nice segue into kind of next portion of the conversation. And Tracy, you queued it up a little bit in your earlier remarks that, all three of our partners on the line today offer a cascade, sort of like a automation workflow too, as you're going through verification processes to help reduce costs there. So Jeff, I want to bring you in on this note. Heard a lot from our lender members, in particular over the last 6 months, about implementing cascade automation to reduce costs on their end. I guess first off, maybe for those less familiar with a cascade, might take a minute just to explain what it is and kind of how it can work.
Sure. That's a good question because it is fairly new, I'm sure. I mean, it's been thrown around for years, but it is fairly new that, I think all three of us can consistently talk about it now. But I know for us here at Certified Credit, we basically look at it this way. It's really an approach to utilize a customizable kind of an automated rules-based, filter-based, logical steps, kind of a workflow engine that's going to pull data in from multiple instant databases, right? So as an example, we Tracy and Michael both touched on the VOEs, but if a borrower's employment or income isn't available to be verified in one database, this workflow process will automatically check other available databases. So that's kind of a cascade in a nutshell. So and we, I think all of us have, the cascading VOEs, as Tracy mentioned. Another common use that we talk to our clients all the time about is a smart select, which is a cascading credit report. So that's kind of our explanation of it in a nutshell, Tom.
Gotcha. I appreciate that, sir. And then, to kind of take it a step further, and I'll open with you here, Jeff, but welcome Michael, Tracy's perspectives as well, is I'd love to highlight for the audience just what some of the potential benefits are out there for deploying a cascade.
Sure. That's at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? How can we benefit our clients? So to me, I talk about kind of 5 big benefits in the cascade. If you were to implement a cascade solution, it's number one, it's definitely an automation upgrade, right? So it'll take a lot of the manual touch out of it. And this is going to undoubtedly, positively impact accuracy and consistency to really help eliminate human error. Another big benefit is because a cascade is really rules-based, you can cut down on, a lot of your compliance risk by incorporating different security-based rules around your workflows with these cascades. So I kind of lump these two together. Cost savings, productivity gains are definitely key benefits to implementing the cascade. I mean, just think about it, less employee hours spent on verification. That's our number one goal with these solutions. So another big key to it is more cost-effective verification processes with your vendors. Tracy hit the nail on the head at the beginning there. Don't order what you don't need kind of deal. So and then the final one, is overall production. Your LOs can focus more of their time on driving apps and business in the door. And, on the other side of that, processors can touch more loans, more files. So a lot of this, what we're kind of talking about, it goes back to a discussion that we had with one of a client that's a TMC member on one of your recent TMC Connects. And, we all understand that all lenders are looking for ways to trim the fat, and utilizing technology is going to be your best way to do that. And definitely, if you haven't started, it's time. So You know, at the end of the day, we're discussing and we're looking at giving lenders the ability to start with the lowest cost or their best option to whatever, you know, in their workflows to utilize these Cascade tools. And, you know, from my perspective, and I think we're all kind of the same in this regard, is, you know, some of the strategies that I talk to my clients about are utilizing a Cascade credit report, which is called Smart Select in our world. I believe it's, you know, we all have it. You might call it something different. In fact, we should probably call it Cascade Select since we're naming pretty much everything Cascade something nowadays. But it's just a great way, you know, to cut a minimum of 10, 15, 20% off of your monthly credit report bill. So easy to implement. It's a no-brainer in my opinion, and if you're not using it, that would be a strategy that I would look at right away. Cascade VOEs, which Tracy talked about, Tracy and Michael, you know, you've got Experian Verify, the work number, Finicity, all of us, you can cascade to have us facilitate it manually for you. A big one that I talk to my clients about is Cascade Alerts, which is a monitoring service for client retention, help avoid EPOs. You even, you know, we take it even to the undisclosed debt monitoring. There's so many different filters and parameters to cascade through that, you know, to best fit whatever, because there's so many different things that lenders look for. But we can really drill it down to your specific business needs. And then finally, I'll touch on the Cascade prequals, which I believe Michael is probably going to go a little more in depth on this topic. But, you know, since we're talking about strategies, reducing costs, that kind of stuff, if you're not already implementing, you know, a soft pull prequal in your process, now's a great time to do it, because it's, you know, a lot of people are doing it, and I think it's pretty important to have as part of your arsenal for sure.
And if I could add one thing that I think Jeff said, and it's really great to reinforce, is that for what we're saying, there's a lot of products and a lot of things that you can have control over. And I think that's the biggest thing to drive home, is that this isn't something that you have to micromanage or worry about. We're in a time in which we do need to take a closer look about what our employees are doing and why order things that you don't need. So all of us have tools in place in which you say to us, I don't want to pull a tri-merge if the first two scores are under a 600. Great, we stop it. You save that money. And you can put things in place, and we all have tools in place so that it takes the pressure off you. You develop your policy, we put it into play, and it automatically puts those parameters around your employees. So it's not, you're not chasing after people, having to tell them to stop doing something specifically. You tell us and we're able to change it, and change it on a monthly basis if you needed to. You know, thresholds change of what you're willing to look at. So all of these customers, or all of these vendors, basically, we have the ability to customize that for you and take advantage of it when you're trying to manage. It helps you manage your team.
Yeah, Tracy, to that point, you know, do you, and I guess I would open this up to the group, I'm assuming it'd probably be unanimous, but do you have clients that will come back to your team on as frequently as a monthly basis, or, you know, somewhat close to that, to want to revisit, you know, maybe their current Cascade rules or strategies in place, just to be really diligent about minimizing the controllable expenses that they can?
We can do it monthly, Tom, if necessary. You know, it's probably something I would suggest kind of on a quarterly basis.
Yeah.
Or if, you know, something changed in the lending environment, thresholds or whatever the case may be, but usually a quarterly review will give you a good idea of where things stand, where you can tweak, those kind of things, where I'm paying for stuff that I don't need. And that's exactly right, Tracy. I'm glad you kind of reinforced that. Is we do have the tools, and we can review it with you monthly, quarterly, biannually, whatever you'd like. So
yeah, I think, Tom, too, you really get into, it's about a reevaluation process time, right? We are in a different moment in this mortgage life cycle. And you really have to look at reevaluating your workflows to understand what's available to you and what your outcome you're seeking. We often get into it where, everyone, and we are purposely, just so everyone will know, we purposely make sure that this is not our company specific, right? We're trying to give information out to the masses, but everything that we're mentioning, we all offer. Now we may call it Jeff made it, it may be a cascade, it may be waterfall. We're going to have the different terminologies, but we're still offering the same thing. What you really want to do, if I'm the lender, knowing what I know from this side of the equation, is I'm really wanting to say, okay, how can I reduce the cost? How can I make sure I capture more of my loans up front, obviously? And basically, I want to protect my investment. That my investment now has to be looked at as, what am I paying up front, from the credit report to the verifications and to the other services? That's an investment right now. And you're trying to say, how can I protect my investment? And it is less upfront until you have a sense of certainty before you progress into more of your other services.
No, it's a great point, Michael, and I apologize. Just as you guys were talking about the different naming conventions, all I have in my head is "Don't go chasing waterfalls." But TLC
You got to
shout
stick
out
to
there.
the okay.
But it's a fair point, and I think it's all cyclical. I mean, during busy cycles, we're all focused on production and getting every loan possible through the door, and not about refining the processes and really examining the controllable costs that might be out there. So it's a healthy exercise in, a down market right now to refine that process. Couple of questions in the chat, Mike, before I come back to you kind of on pre-qual cascades is, just to clarify, so you guys answered it already, but there's a question: do our partners charge for cascade tool updates? Unanimous no on that. Part of the ongoing consultation is being a good partner together. Great question here from the chat as well is, do you have customization with your credit partner? And if not, what questions can we, and I'm assuming this from a lender perspective, what questions can we answer about making that happen? Tony, do I have that right? I apologize if I'm misstating that.
Well, I think everyone should be having these conversations with your credit reporting agency right now. All of us have access to your data, and your data is one of the most important things to have, right? You have access to know what's your average mid score. What does that look like over a period of time? How are you reviewing your invoices? So, I guess if you're asking what questions you can have to make that happen, I think it's starting by just saying, my bill's too high. How can I put parameters around what my people are doing? And if they don't have a direct answer for you on that, that's a problem. Everyone should be able to come back with some kind of solution for it, whether it is something smaller. The cascade for credit is a really huge thing to look at, because 10% on a certain, depending on what your bill is, that can be a pretty large number in these times, especially with credit pricing the way that it is. And a 2-bureau credit report is a lot different than a 3-bureau or a 1-bureau.
Right. And I would say too is there is no cookie cutter solution, right? Everyone does not operate the same, meaning, some just take, you may be as lender, you're doing more on the pre-qual side, that you're taking your applications online and you're trying to vet that potential applicant as much as you can, because obviously the end game is to get that applicant across the finish line. I go back to the investment comment I made before. Yet at the same time, there may be, if it's a builder, you working more with builders, or on the home equity side, it truly does depend on where you're going and where you are at the particular point, this particular point. So it's imperative that you reach out to your rep and speak and ask, like Tracy said, look, here's my bill. Take a look at it, and can you help me? Can you show where we may be able to potentially save some fees? I mean, there may be some unnecessary ordering. It is imperative as well that you have to have more controls. There's less money coming in. We're no longer operating in an environment where you'd be like, okay, next. Now, everyone is important. So because of that, you do want to make sure that you're spending your time wisely, but no need to unnecessarily order product up front, right? We can implement milestone ordering for you so that you can place controls where your staff doesn't just go and do it because that's what they traditionally have done. Again, it is a new way of thinking. We are having to do it as well. So we're innovative in our products. We're trying to ensure that we're bringing products to the mortgage lending industry that are relevant, right? And relevant today is efficiency. Save me time on how I can process this, save me money. And that's the efficiencies that we want to try to bring in our products and services.
Yeah, I think
Minimum of 10%, Tom. I mean, right off the bat, when just implementing that simple solution. I crunched one the other day where it was close to 20% for a client. So, I mean, it's no-brainer stuff that we're talking about here.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that if you're having a conversation with your provider and you say, I need to save money, or you're shopping around and all they do is come back to you and say, okay, I can save you this amount on this product, doing an apples and apples comparison without providing you solutions, that should be a red flag. You should be talking, you need to reevaluate that conversation. If someone's not giving you alternative solutions other than, I can cut that price by $2, revisit it.
It's a fantastic point. I mean, if you have a true collaborative partner that's invested with you for the long haul, they're going to want to have that investigatory conversation about looking at your process flow, your stats from your prior bills, and really being a collaborator with you on how you create those efficiencies while also cutting down your costs at the same point. So fantastic insights across the board. Jeff, you kind of touched into it at a high level a little bit earlier. Michael, I want to give you the opportunity to expand upon it. This was a big topic of discussion in our prep for this, was implementing a cascade with pre-qualifications. I'd love for you to do a little bit of a deeper dive real quick just into, kind of key benefits and maybe potential challenges out there towards implementing a cascade for pre.
Yeah, that's something that's pretty cool, is you can actually even use that cascade on your pre-qual soft pulls, which, as we all know or should know, those are considerably lower cost than your hard pulls. But the answer is yes, you can implement the cascade, smart select, and Michael's world's waterfall. Tracy, you have your world of it, but yeah, so the cascade can even be implemented on your pre-qual soft pulls. Yes.
Yeah, and maybe adding just a little bit to that one is, you're reducing your credit report costs, as Jeff just stated, but it's on the fallout, right? Think of it further down the process there. It's the fallouts that you're trying to avoid. You are not wanting to spend a tri-bureau cost on that percentage that consistently falls out. This pre-qual, soft inquiry, pre-qual will give you that opportunity. And then there's another component that you do get a benefit of, and that is the delaying of your triggers that your consumer will generate in doing so. And I say delay purposely because if you just do a pre-qual soft pull, the triggers are not generated, right? It does protect that, but I speak of it more in delay because if that applicant is a qualifiable applicant and you do move it up the process, then you want to making sure that you pull that hard inquiry later in the process once you are more comfortable, once you have created that relationship with the applicant, so that the applicant is not likely to move and for the dollar or whatever that different terms that another lender may offer. And that becomes it's hard because we have it. We do not participate and we do not sell the trigger leads. We don't allow anyone to just go out and throw a dart out and say, look, if this applicant has a whatever score, we want that. And we do that as a position. And I think we all are nodding our heads here. We do that as a position of where we are serving you, our lenders. Yet we're not naive that those leads can be purchased directly from the bureaus. And some companies will complain on it about, my leads are being taken, but yet on the backside, they may be purchasing those leads. We've seen it all, but what we're trying to do and what we want to do is help you qualify that applicant deeper into the process, right? And that becomes more like your milestone ordering that we could do. Hits a certain point, whenever it gets to, a particular property or application or whatever that milestone may be, then you can go in and pull the hard inquiry. And in doing so, you have a little bit more relationship with it, so that applicant is not likely to venture off and follow the squirrel, if you will.
No, that's a great point, Michael. We were just talking about this on the rundown last Friday. I think one attendee mentioned that their borrower off of a trigger lead got 104 inquiries over a short time span there, and kind of flies in the face of some of the advocacy behind it. Is it's a way to provide consumers choice and knowledge of their options out there when you see that kind of frequency of the outreach coming in. So to your point, the later in the process that you can trigger that pull, the less of a chance of potentially losing your client to a competitor who gets that lead information.
And that's why pre-qual works so well, Tom, is that you have that window of time. If they are a qualified applicant, based off of that pre-qual, you have time with them to get them off of that trigger lead list, essentially. optout.com, 800 numbers, all that stuff, which we all provide to our clients all the time. But definitely take advantage of that if you're not.
Yeah, and maybe one last point on that, from a consultative approach, certainly as lenders, as you're dealing with your applicants, it is also part of it that we have seen that successes is where, you understand your consumer situation as well, because we talk about the pre-qual, that's the soft inquiry, and then how long can you wait until you pull that hard inquiry? There also is, the area that there may be a potential score change that's involved there, right? So you need to consult with and this is not anything new, but it is not happening as much as I think it used to. I'm dating myself, back in the RMCR days when you'd have this length of time where you'd have to instruct don't go apply for, your new furniture and things of that nature. It still takes place, right? Every lender on there should be nodding their head saying, yeah, we still have those consumers who does it. But if we can know that consumer's situation already and educate up front, right, we're mitigating that opportunity for that score to change. And then if it does, last plug is that we all do have is you can have a score optimization opportunity as well, that we can help if there's a score, there's a change and things of that nature that we may be able to simulate to help them too. So it's never ending. All that we're saying is make sure to just give us a chance, consult with us, allow us to not push product. That's not our idea here. I think we all see that we're in this industry that's it's ever changing. But if we have the right products and the services that can assist you, we certainly want to get those to you without a forceful sale, but with an understanding that we're trying to do what is the best practice to help ultimately this consumer to close their loans.
Yeah, Michael, you give me a little PTSD back to my LOA days on late in the process, undisclosed debt coming in and having to put together an assortment of LOXs to get the loan to clear to close. But okay.
No, I was going to say, you're exactly right. We don't want to go back through those days.
Nah, by no means. So I know we've got a couple targeted questions here. It's last call for audience. If there's any additional questions that you want to queue up for us to ask before we wrap up today, feel free to drop those in the chat, the Q&A button. As well in the chat, registration for part 2 of our series, 2 weeks from today, May 9th at 3 p.m. Eastern. I'm laughing a little bit. I'll give you guys cover here you can simply shake your head at me if you guys, want to avoid these
I'm
two
nervous.
questions here. But first one is there an expectation that there will be an annual accelerated increase in future years from FICO, similar to what you see on an annual basis from the three main bureaus?
There already has been. I mean, accelerated is the key here. But what I think a lot of people don't realize is that every year, the credit reporting agencies, we receive pricing increases not only from the bureaus but from FICO. This year was extraordinary. We all have our theories about why they're doing that. We know competition is coming, so final hurrah. I don't know, but we do know that they'll continue to come. We've never not had an increase from the bureaus, or I don't know about FICO, to be honest, but
Not every year. I don't
Yeah.
think cycles every year, but
yeah,
something. It's usually something, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I would say that to that same point, you're right. FICO did not increase annually as the bureaus. The bureaus give us a Christmas present. You get that Christmas present every year. That's when they give us our increases. And yes, we do predict that we're going to continue to see that. We've seen it for decades. I would also, this is just my opinion, with FICO and with the competition that's coming in, you will probably could expect that you're going to see increases coming from FICO and Vantage in just the same manner, just not as accelerated as they did this time. This was intentional to make up for where they had missed in the previous years. So now that they have level set, if you will, I would suggest that, yes, we could predict that we'll see it, but it's not going to be as substantial as this.
It's 400% to level set.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
again.
that kind of relates
what
to
level
the,
set?
Yeah, what is
Yeah.
crazy?
you guys are seeing it. Yeah. The other question was, I hear about who's in tier 1 and who's in tier 3 under the FICO increases, but any insight on who is included in that nefarious tier 2?
We're bound to not disclose that. So we have all received information from the bureaus telling us that we are not to speak that out loud. But it's a very small number. I mean, I think that we can say between
Yeah.
one having 40 something. I think the second tier has 10.
Less than.
Yeah.
Less than. Yeah. Yeah. And tiers, I mean, we get that question often, is how do we get potential change in tiers? What do they base the information off of? Again, proprietary to FICO, and we have all been sworn to secrecy, if you will. Yet I do believe as the data does come out this year, you could expect that they'll be looking at that data and analyzing it, at the end of this year to give out the new tiers if they change the tiers, as well as their pricing.
So big takeaway for everybody: Tracy, Michael, or Jeff have no control over what tier that you fall into. So don't berate them if
Michael and Jeff passed those fees on just the same. As everyone saw, we had no control. We're passing the information on.
But I do think that's important to say that we're bound by certain things. That doesn't mean that you as a lender should not push throughout different organizations to get answers to those questions.
Exactly.
So I would talk to, your state MBA, the MBA as a whole, ask them what they're doing about it, and push and reach out and push back. You have these, the hardest thing about that is that we get this information, we're bound to it, we can't explain it. And the responses we got was, well, it's happening. The lenders can ask questions if they want, but don't tell them, certain X, Y, and Z. So it's important to recognize that just because it's being filtered through a third party doesn't mean that you don't have the right to directly advocate for yourselves. We're in a precarious situation where we can push back, but the pushback really has to come from the lenders in order to make change, because, you know, we're a filter system that it goes through.
That's a great point. So absolutely leveraging MBA or other trade associations out there as a sounding board. You know, there's power in numbers, especially when the lending community comes together. So on that note, I want to thank Tracy, Jeff, Michael. This was a great discussion today. I look forward to revisiting this with you both in 2 weeks from today. And in case you registered but were unable to join live, we're going to be following up from today's discussion too with on-demand assets as well to be able to view the playback from this discussion. So feel free to share it with your peers that maybe wanted to be part of the call and couldn't join. But on that note, thank you all three again. I look forward to doing this with you one more time in 2 weeks.
Do we do the closing music? Don't go
Chasing
Waterfalls. Take to the rivers and
It's gonna be
the
left eye. Everyone take a part. Yeah, here we go.
And
Hey,
on
thanks,
that
Bob.
note, we're out.
Thank you.
Take care,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Bye-bye.